Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Ability Talks with Elizabeth Petterson. I am Elizabeth Petterson and we believe here that there's ability and disability. On today's episode, we will be talking to Efia Akese, who is a journalist and a NICU champion. So she'll talk to us briefly about her, well, not briefly, she'll talk to us about her journey and how she got into doing the work that she does. So Efia, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So
my pleasure.
Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay, so I think that you summed it up.
Just gave a two-liner, but the full scope of who you are.
So I'm a journalist. I do most of more of health and lifestyle, and then profiling women who do amazing things. Although I do everything, these are the three things that I really focus on. And when it comes to NICU, I'm the founder of NICU Soldiers. So NICU Soldiers is an advocacy blog that shares stories from the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit. So I have a blog where I write stories, then the social media platforms where I share snippets of the NICU, what to expect. I interact with other NICU mothers, and then occasionally we do reach out to facilities, to mothers or to caregivers who need help. So we do some donations, we do hospital visits to encourage the parents, especially the mothers in the NICU. And then with support from people, mostly small businesses. It's amazing that most of our funding comes from people who run mother care shops, people who have little business, and people who have experienced the NICU and understand how difficult it is to be there. So they give us funds, gifts, and then we present to families who need them.
Yeah. Excellent. How long has the foundation, if it's a foundation, been operational?
So I started NICU Soldiers in 2021. Yes. So we are in our fourth year.
Yeah. So 4 years.
4 years.
Next year, 5-year anniversary, we'll do it big.
Yes. Big five, hopefully.
So can you share a little bit about why NICU? Because a lot of people, there's causes that anybody and everybody wants to champion. Why NICU? Okay,
so I had my first child in 2017, and he was a full term. Full terms are usually not popular in NICU because the NICU is always assumed to have preterm babies, that is babies born before 37 weeks. But this was a full-term baby. It was an uneventful pregnancy. It was a normal pregnancy. I worked throughout. I didn't even take, sometimes you have the option of taking some leave before you go, like before your due date, but I think I worked till the weekend I had to deliver because I was okay. And for some reason the young man decided to end up in NICU at an odd time, 1 a.m.
37 weeks, that's like
he was even past
over. Yeah, almost
yes.
I think 36 weeks is the full term, if I remember.
37 from any so once you hit 37, from between 37 you are regarded as full term. So anywhere below 36 going to 35 coming down, then you are.
But it's not the danger zone.
No, not at all. Not at all. So he was okay, but then he came out and he had to be rushed to the NICU immediately. Thankfully, it was a facility that had a 24-hour NICU running, and so it was a difficult journey. When I went into the NICU, I think that time I was confused, and I was surprised I didn't even know such a place existed because I'd been a journalist for some time. I'd done some health reporting, but I had no idea such a place existed, and it wasn't an easy period. We go through that phase, and we try to even find reasons, causes, what could have happened, and till date, he's 7. No doctor has told us specifically that this or this caused what happened, but thankfully, after almost 3 weeks, he was okay. We went home, and I'm a mother, so I was still having more babies, and I have my second girl.
Still having more babies.
I have my second girl, and she also decides to go to the NICU. So she was actually preterm. She came earlier, I think about 34 weeks, almost, but she wasn't even like a very in the red zone. Those who come between, some come as early as 22, 23 weeks. Those ones are very severe cases, but she was okay. But thankfully, the facility had a policy that any child, no matter how the child looked at birth, any child who was born before his or her
the 40 weeks,
the due date should go to the NICU for assessment. And it was good because I think by the second day, they started picking a few things that they had to work on. So hers wasn't as complicated, right? And we went home. She was okay. But then I think that these children were assigning me to NICU because this one who had a very simple stay in NICU at 6 weeks got very ill. I think she caught a viral infection and we had to go back to the child emergency. And almost ended up not in a NICU but in a very specialized care for newborns. So, and it had some mothers. I think that the hospital had an overflow, so it had some mothers who had babies in incubators. So it was almost like you're in a NICU, you're not in a NICU. And that was when my eyes were open to some of the real challenges that mothers with preterm babies faced. And I think that post that, I said, okay, I'm not sure I just came here by coincidence because there were many things that had to be discussed. So being a journalist, I write for a living. So I said, okay, let me start writing about it. I didn't know about it. If someone had shared some information, it would have made my journey easier. So I started to write about it. And that's how
I came to
be.
So as you're talking, I had a flashback to when I had to I didn't have to. I had to give birth to my daughter back in 2018. It was, we were watching the presidential election debates between Hillary Clinton. I mentioned earlier, I have a life outside of Ghana as well. I share my life. I always say I have 1 foot in Ghana, 1 foot in the US. So we were watching the presidential debates between Hillary Clinton and Trump. And as I'm sure in Ghana too, everybody was glued to the TV trying to figure out what they were both going to see at any point or the other. And then they went on a commercial break. I went to use the washroom. And when I went to use the washroom, something just dropped. Into the bowl. And I said to my mom, I think it's time.
It's time. Yeah.
And so it just cast my mind back to that place. And unfortunately for me, my mom will never drive in the rain. So someone who's about to have a baby, I have to order an Uber, and then it's raining, and my son was 2 or 3 at the time.
Wow.
So we had to get him to my sister's place in this rush. And then my daughter almost got delivered in the taxi. And when we got there, I pushed her out within, I think, 8 minutes. And maybe the rush of the whole thing happening, she was breathing, I believe, 80%. Okay. So they had to put a breathing tube on her, all these things. And you can imagine, as somebody who had been in a car accident, has spent years in the hospital doing therapies and surgeries and all that, to see my minutes-old daughter with a breathing tube, it put me in panic mode. So I want to know, how did you deal with it when you were told that you're having premature kids? I think that the emotional roller coaster.
I think that the NICU always gives a shock. And when I started this NICU work, I realized that in advanced places, in advanced countries, once they know that you are likely to have either a preterm birth or you may end up in the NICU, they can do a tour of the facility and show you what happens there. Down here, your first experience in the NICU is when your baby is there. Because relatives are not allowed in. It's only the mother, father. If the mother is not available, then the father nominates one caregiver who would come because they want to control infections. So this is me. I've delivered around 1 a.m. The nurse has rushed the baby. I knew the urgency. I knew that something was not right because of the urgency in which they rushed the baby. But then when this nurse came back after about 20 minutes, I asked him, he said, the baby is fine. He's okay. He's sleeping. So I should also rest. And then in the morning, I would go back and I would go and see him. So I was tired from long hours of, contraction and all of that. So I went into a deep sleep about 30 minutes and I was up. So the following morning, they said, the NICU will be opened at 9 a.m. So I was in the I was very happy. See, I don't know why till date I didn't even Google, because usually you check, but I didn't check my phone. I didn't. So I think my mom was there in the morning. I told her, they said they're just monitoring the baby, and in the morning I'll go and pick him. 9 a.m. I get to the entrance, join the queue. There were other mothers there. Then I enter a ward, and this is a room full of tubes. Like, you enter and you know that this is not a place that this is not how I anticipated the happy ending of my like pregnancy journey, with tubes, other babies, and even aside your own baby, you see other babies.
Weeks is really like very close.
Other babies with all serious complications, and the room is so moody. Honestly, it was still one of my worst moments I've experienced since I was born, because that morning everything, like, I felt like, wow, I thought I was going to get pregnant, have my baby born, and you are going home, and now this is like a whole new journey of discovering that you could have a baby. But I think that God does his things in ways that we don't understand, but for that experience, I'm not sure I'd have been writing about NICU or sharing NICU. Yeah. And interesting, you know that the starting NICU soldiers like in full force started because of a baby who had issues more complicated than ours.
Okay. Tell us about that.
You know, when I went to NICU the first time and I came back, the idea to start NICU soldiers came up. So I put it together, but I was like, okay, no, how am I going to tell the whole world? Maybe people, like, why am I going to share this part of my journey with the world? It's private, you know how we are here. We don't speak about
You're
these
very
things.
reserved, conservative.
So that's how come later I realized that apparently there were people I really knew who were close to me who had experienced NICU, but I never knew existed. So I held back. So after my second experience, I felt like, well, let me talk about this, because like there's a lot of emotional support that you can provide for a mother or parents who are in NICU. So there was a baby that we met when my daughter got sick around 6 weeks. Unfortunately for the mother and all of us, that baby lost his life, I think, when he turned 1. Sorry. But if he had survived, looking at his condition, I'm sure he would have had a very long, or should I say lifelong, disability, because he had a very advanced hydrocephalus infection in the head, and this baby had been in NICU for 3 months. Wow. For you to stay in a NICU for 3 months, it means whatever is happening was actually very serious. Yeah. This is a mother whose husband had told him to leave the baby there because the baby would die. The baby had been sent.
You're gonna die anyway.
David said that the baby had been, it was spiritual, it's bad luck. And the mother was like, even if I had met someone's child on the floor, I won't leave the person's child. I'll pick this child till I'm able to hand him or her over to either the parents or the right authorities. How much more my own child, someone I've conceived and it's taken me 9 months and I have the baby now, are telling me to leave. So the father cut all connections. Wow. So this was a mother struggling to take care of this baby alone. Wow. And there were days that she had spent almost everything she had. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't buy her medication. Her medications were expensive. Then it was even about 200 cedis and they used one in a day. Wow. Very, very expensive. So that is when indirectly I started, okay, I'm going to buy food. Can I get you? She said, oh, okay. Initially, she wouldn't agree. So maybe when I go out to buy the food, I buy two. Get her then when I'm buying water, you know, when I'm having visitors, I make sure that. And that's how it started, because I realized that see someone who had been in NICU for 3 months, and I know even if you're in NICU for 2 hours, the emotions it comes with. And then someone who had left children and she was at home and her other kids would be calling. One of the days I cried, I had to leave her to cry because she had a child who was around 4 years. And this child had gone to play and had been pierced by a nail under her feet. I think she was playing barefooted. Wow. So she mistakenly stepped on a nail and she was 4 years. And the older children were between 8 to about 12 years. And their mother was in the hospital. Their father had abandoned them. And this mother was torn between. She even wanted to go home and look at the baby. But she also, her child who is 4, but she also had a baby on oxygen by her who needed her. Wow. And that day I just stepped out. I couldn't let her see me crying. You know, you are going to make it more emotional for her. But I think that is when I really, so it was the first time I was even asking for support on social media, because after buying her drugs for a while, we were running dry, you know. So I asked a couple of people, is there anyone who can get us this medication? Is there anyone who can help her pay A, B, C? And thankfully she had some support in that short while.
So I was born in Ghana. I grew up in Ghana till 10, but what do you really know from age 1 to 9 or 10?
Yeah.
And my point of reference for healthcare has been in the US, where if you're lucky and if you could afford it, you get the best healthcare. And my point of reference for healthcare in Ghana is you need to be able to afford the best.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about NICU soldiers and how families or mothers who are in that position can access good health care?
So it all boils down to affordability, like you mentioned. Most people will go to public hospitals because they can't afford certain. Thankfully, I think that now a number of private hospitals have NICUs as well. But then in my opinion, the most resourced NICUs I've seen are the ones in the main public hospitals, like Kolebu, Reg, those top government hospitals. Yes, but the NICU is expensive. The NICU, NHIS doesn't cover. It covers, which is National Health Insurance. Minimum. It covers like the barest minimum of things, like maybe in some places, okay, your stay there, your toiletries, maybe detergents and those things that they use to clean the babies. Yeah. That's it. But you run your own labs, and if you don't run your labs, it means that you are not getting treatment. You run your own labs, buy your own medication. Aside all these, because if you the mother has been discharged from the hospital, you'll be moving in and out from every day to come to your baby, because there are almost all the places don't have hostels that can accommodate all the mothers. The ones that have few will accommodate mothers who come very far from Accra. And sometimes some of the conditions even in those hostels are not so conducive. So aside your own bills, aside the bills for the baby, you are billing, you're also paying all these cost of your transportation, food, and even the emotional stress that you go through, knowing that your baby is in an intensive care unit. Because there are days you come that a child is no longer here, and the mother may be seen crying out. That means that the child has passed. And you leave your baby overnight. So you always go and come back thinking, okay, would I come and be my baby? Will I come and be, it's so uncertain. And the idea of leaving your baby to go home and sleep. Some people may comment that, oh, you are lucky, your baby is not with you. Which newborn mother
would not want their baby to be with them?
No. So sometimes you'll be even at home and you won't sleep till morning. And if the hospital calls you for maybe to ask about an update or something, the scare that comes with seeing the hospital calling, what are they looking for? What could be the issue, But thankfully with the support, I think that the main gap in NICU is support, because people enter and they give up. Because it's easy to give up in the NICU. But over time, I've seen that providing support, providing counseling, sharing our story. That's what I do, because I'm not excited talking about NICU because I want to talk. Honestly, I've been an art writer before. Not I've been an art writer before. I write art, even still for the Mirror. I still handle the art page in the Mirror. I know what's exciting. I know what can get the clicks. I know what can get people. Good. I know what can get people to read, but I choose to write NICU because it's a place that there's still no very little information, right? And when people have that kind of information, it helps them to navigate their own journey and supports them. So it's not like we talk about NICU because we simply want to talk about something, but it's to really get to people who need help, to have that information.
So we spoke briefly about the social stigmas of having preterm babies. The theme of this episode is motherhood and disability, and I'm wondering if there's any way that people relate or feel like having a preterm baby is a form of disability. Can you share some of the experiences you've had?
So my own preterm baby was not they will classify her as late preterm because she was almost 35 weeks. So I'm sure if it wasn't even in the facility that she was delivered at, she wouldn't have been taken to the NICU. So she didn't have very visible signs of, she was small. That's the only thing that you could see. But in the last 4 years, I've seen babies who are not bigger than my palm.
Wow.
Or who are almost the size of my palm. Very little.
Wow.
With their head included. And so when they go home, usually when you talk to the mother, sometimes even at the hospital.
Sorry for a second. What's the survival rate of a baby that's the size of your
It will
palm?
shock you that yes. And one of the places that have some of these how do you call it, miraculous, I call them miraculous healings, is when you go to the NICU Akolibu and Rage. At least those are the places I know. You see a baby and you wonder what this baby making, and in a month you come back and it's the same baby, like still thriving, growing. And although that there are some cases that there are rare cases that there are cases that they may pass, but once you get help early, that's also one challenge, that if you don't get the right facility to be delivered at. Every day I say that if I hadn't delivered at the place I had my baby at, there were chances that my first wouldn't have survived.
Have made it, yeah.
Because I'd gone to that same NICU and someone had rushed a baby who had the same condition my baby was diagnosed with at birth, got in, and the baby had died.
Wow.
You understand? So coming back to this issue with people, even me, who have said over the time that I'm not a typical premium mom because I didn't do KMC, which is kangaroo mother care. That helps the bonding and helps them to gain more weight. I didn't do a lot of things as a preterm mom. So when people who've come to hear me share about stories about NICU or preterm, how is your child? Is she okay? So everything is fine. Like they're expecting to say, post NICU, she has this. Clearly, some babies come out with lifelong disabilities or challenges, either physical or sometimes neurological, depending on whatever condition they were diagnosed with. But being in the NICU is only a phase, and once you go through that journey, even if for people who even have lifelong issues to deal with, most of them go like every other child. It's still the stigma. Still the stigma as okay, maybe the person is having preterm babies because the person is cursed. The person having preterm babies because she insulted someone when she was pregnant. She has eaten some food. You know how we attach everything to spirits and all of that.
Interject. I remember you said cursed, and I am like having all these memories of my own journey. Like so with my daughter, my second born, unfortunately or fortunately, the pregnancy for the whole term happened during COVID, like 2019.
Okay.
She was born in 2020. And so all of us were in the house and you can't go anywhere, you can't move. And one day I felt like I had like some weird rash on my stomach. I went to my nanny and I asked her to take a look at it for me. And what she said to me was, and I was like, that just means like when you're pregnant, we can't look at you, we can't touch you. Like, I don't want to see what the thing is on your stomach.
But doctors touch you, doctors look at you.
I just said to her, like, why? And she goes, Abia, like, I don't know why I'm switching. Because she was speaking to me in the local language. She was saying, like, maybe there's something going on with the baby, and if she touches my stomach to even like identify what the rash may be, she might catch it. Or if something happens to the baby,
she be blamed.
Yeah, I would blame her for that because she looked at me or she touched me.
That's backward thinking.
Yes, very backwards. And this was just 2020.
See, it happens even now. It happens even now. Today, currently, you'd be amazed that. I remember there was a mother that we were following, and then there was a child who wasn't well. This child was on oxygen, had other complications that they were trying to resolve. And this lady brings some concussion from the house to say that her mother-in-law says that they've seen the cause of it. So it's either they are bringing the baby home or they should give that concussion to the baby. They should give the concussion to the baby in the NICU. So the doctors were like, we don't accept any concussions. Also, this is a child on oxygen. Are they going to give the oxygen cylinder to you to take home? How are you going to even check if the baby was breathing well, the baby saturation and all of that? And this mother was insistent, almost crying, begging that they give her baby. So they told her clearly that a baby she's a minor. If we, the doctors, feel that this is what is right, and so we're allowed to take the decision for the baby. And so they never give the baby to her. So people still, there are many stories. There are women who had babies in NICU that they couldn't go home. They lingered on the corridors because they didn't want to go home for people to ask them, where is your baby?
Because that shame of you went to give birth and now
you are almost empty-handed. Good. So they would sleep on the hospital corridors, linger around, find places. But and you meet them and you see that they are really stressed, only because they are afraid to go home to what people would say. You understand?
Right. So I think we're getting to the ending of our interview. I just want to know what's the future for NICU soldiers, and if you have any advice or anything that you want to say to our audience.
Okay. So NICU soldiers for me is to grow. It looks like as of now, almost everything revolves around me. So if work or family takes a bigger part of my time, NICU soldiers suffers in a way. So my aim is to grow it beyond me. So although I have some volunteers, most of the advocacy, most of the rounds and everything, I do it. So yes, so I really want to build a team of people who are also passionate about the NICU. Not necessarily people who have NICU experiences, people who would want to see change or through the work. So we grow together as a team. And then the main challenge has been funding, because sometimes I have to slow down, because when you keep going, then the demand,
that perception that,
and then even the demand for support keeps coming, and you are unable to help, and the assumption is that, oh, okay, you are doing this, there's some money somewhere, but you know, like
if you're always moving, people think that
and
you're doing something.
What they don't know is that most of the time, aside the monetary donations or gifts that goes to the mothers or hospitals, most of the operational cost is from out of pocket. You understand? So my main focus now is to grow NICU soldiers as a complete team of people who can work whether I'm around or I'm not around.
So where is NICU soldiers operating at the moment? Which region?
Okay, so we've done work in only the Greater Accra and Eastern region.
Okay.
If we have more support, we are willing and ready to extend to other places.
Okay. So thank you so much, Efia Akese.
My pleasure.
Journalist extraordinaire.
My pleasure.
And founder of NICU Soldiers. This has been Ability Talks with Elizabeth Petterson. Thank you very much.